All right, what is up, YouTube? My name is Matt Modi. I am a content producer and betting analyst for OddsJam.com. And in this video, I am going to teach you why positive expected value betting is so valuable in sports betting. Why is positive EV so valuable in sports betting? Let's talk about it. So, positive expected value betting. I have been using OddsJam for a little over a year now, up to about 13.5K in profit. I will say, at the time of recording this, I am in the midst of a bad week. Prior to the literal, if I'd recorded this yesterday, my profit would have been at about 14. I lost about 500 yesterday, but regardless, still have had crazy profits using OddsJam, using the positive expected value betting tool. I started off at about $500. My bankroll was about $500 when I started. Quickly saw success. I mean, like up 15 out of the first 16 weeks, just something insane. Upped my bankroll to about $750. Upped it to about $1,000. Upped it to where it stands now, which is about $5,000. Using OddsJam has literally built my bankroll from $500 to $5,000 using positive expected value betting. All of this information is pulled from my bet tracker, real bets being tracked on OddsJam, showing you everything there is to know. WinBet, have not had a ton of success. Baseball, I have not had a ton of success. Overall, OddsJam has had a wild success for me in my sports betting. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get into positive expected value betting. So we'll start at the basics of it. So the definition, let me start with that. The definition of positive expected value betting is when you are placing bets that you know as the sports bettor have a higher chance of occurring than the reflected odds that the sportsbook is offering. So that sounds like a mouthful. So let me break it down for you. So the bet that you know has a higher chance of occurring. So the example that I like to give with positive expected value betting, there's a couple, but the first thing I like to talk about is, let's pretend you're flipping a coin, but it's weighted towards heads. So you're placing a bet with someone, they think it's 50-50. They're going to say, yeah, whatever, 50% heads, 50% tails, whatever. But you know, as the quote unquote sports bettor, that you're actually holding a weighted coin. It's actually weighted 55%. It's going to land on heads 55% of the time, 45% towards tails. But the sports bettor, the person that you're placing the bet with, doesn't know that. So if we go back to the definition of positive expected value, we know that the coin is weighted 55% towards heads, but the odds that the sports book, in this case, your buddy that you're flipping the coin with, thinks it's only 50% chance. That 5% gap, that is your positive expected value, right? You know, as the sports bettor, 55%, the sports book / your buddy giving you 50%. So if you're placing that bet with your friend, you're going to bet on heads every single time. Every single time. He could give you 100 coin flips, and you're going to say, well, the higher percent chance it's going to land on heads, so I'm going to bet heads. Now you might lose once, twice, 3 times in a row, whatever, and that's going to be incredibly frustrating, and that is the nature of sports betting. You know, sometimes you have the best bet, and guess what? The team backdoor covers and loses, whatever it may be. That's going to happen. You're going to lose unfortunate bets, even when you have the odds in your favor. But over the course of time, you know that if he flips that coin 100 times, it's going to land on heads roughly 55. He flips that coin 1,000 times, it's going to land on heads 550 times. You know that more often than not, it will land on heads 55% of the time. So that is how positive expected value betting works. You're placing bets that you know as a sports bettor have a higher percent chance of occurring than the reflected odds that the sportsbook is giving you. So, okay, I knew that the coin was weighted towards heads. How do I know that this bet is more likely to occur? It's a great question, person that's asking me. This is how you know. These no vig odds that you see here. So now we're going to get into the sports betting part of this. So the way odds work, right? Every sportsbook has different prices or different ways of pricing odds, different method of pricing odds. What it comes down to, all sportsbooks have different odds. So if I click into a random play here, let's look across the board. We see odds range from -140 to -141 to -120 to -137. How about here? We see odds range from +100 to -108 to -106 to -114. No matter where you look, sportsbooks are going to have different odds. And if we're finding odds that range from -120 to -141, one of those inherently has to be wrong. You can't have a price that wide and have them both be correct. It doesn't make any sense, right? One of them has to be incorrect. So what OddsJam did, and it's an incredibly valuable tool. It's incredibly helpful and analytical, and it just makes a ton of sense, basically using math to place profitable bets. So OddsJam collected thousands and thousands of, or I guess I should say they back tested thousands and thousands of betting opportunities, historical data, previous bets that have occurred. They collected all of this data, thousands of bets, millions of data points, trying to determine, okay, what sportsbooks do the best job at pricing odds? So I mentioned sportsbooks have different odds. One's going to have to be right. One's going to have to be wrong. It just doesn't make sense to have a wide gap and they're both right. It doesn't make any sense. So OddsJam went out on this journey saying, all right, let's find out what sportsbooks consistently do the best job over the course of time. So not just one bet, not saying, oh, they had the Eagles winning, that was the correct bet, this is the sharpest sportsbook. No, thousands of bets, thousands of them, tracking all of this historical data to just tell you, all right, which ones do consistently do the best job. And then once they made that determination, actually, before I get into that, and the cool part about that is the formula they use to calculate which sportsbooks are the sharpest, it's ever updating. So if a month ago, one sportsbook was sharp, for whatever reason, a month later, they're not, that will be reflected in the formula that OddsJam calculates. Another thing is that it's not the same for every sport and every market. DraftKings does a really good job at player props, probably because they're a DFS company. That would make sense. Other sportsbooks might be better at football, might be better at baseball. So the weight that OddsJam is giving to these sportsbooks is different depending on the sport and depending on the market. So they collected all this data and said, okay, you, X amount of books, you guys are the sharpest at pricing odds. You know what the coin should actually be weighted at, essentially, to go back to that example. And then what OddsJam does, and this is what this column you see here, these no vig odds, what they did was they removed the vig from all of those sharp sportsbooks. So if you are not familiar with what the vig is, you probably hear people talking about a juice, that's sportsbooks price odds, an edge, whatever you want to call it. So the way it works is the vig. So a standard market you see across the board, -110, -110 each way, right? Over -110, under -110. So the math behind that, and this is how the vig makes sense. So the Heat and Pacers, Heat are -3.5. I bet $100 on the Heat covering 3.5 points. They win by 4 or more, my bet wins. If they lose or win by 3 or fewer, my bet loses. If I win, I profit $90. So I risk 100 to win 90. If this bet wins, FanDuel gives me $190. 100 of my risk back, $90 in profit. Okay, so I place the Heat. You place the Pacers, right? You place the Pacers, same thing, $100. You bet on the Pacers $100. They either win straight up, they lose by 3 or fewer, you win your bet. I lose my bet. So what happens when this happens is the sportsbook guarantees to profit $10 no matter what. Let's pretend the Heat cover the spread. So I win my bet. I get $190 back into my account. But FanDuel collects $200. They collect my $100 and they collect your $100. So they pay out $190. They accept $200. They make $10 no matter what. There's no scenario in which the Heat win by exactly 3.5. They're either going to cover or they're not. So FanDuel, no matter what, it's going to make $10. So you multiply this $10 by hundreds of thousands of bets, by hundreds of millions of dollars. That's how sportsbooks make money. They charge a tax to odds. So in order to get a representation of what FanDuel, what DraftKings, whatever, truly views a market, without the juice, without the vig, you have to remove that vig. And that's exactly what OddsJam does here. They calculate what sportsbooks are the best at pricing odds. They remove the vig from all of those sharp sportsbooks using a weighted average, and that part's important. So let's pretend there are 3 books that are the quote-unquote the sharpest. These 3 are the best. One of them is actually the best of the 3. 2 of them are still good, not as good as number 1. Well, guess what? Number 1 is going to have heavier weight than number 2 and 3. That's how these no vig odds are calculated. So that part, I spent 10 minutes on it because it's incredibly important. You need to understand why it's such a powerful tool. So once you understand, all right, everything on here is positive expected value. But what does that mean in terms of like odds and stuff? How does that make sense in terms of like the weighted coin, 55 to 50, whatever? So, and I can use an example of a bet that I actually took because you see the check mark here. So the way it works is OddsJam back-tested, blah, 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 came up with this number. They say this sportsbook, this bet, should be priced at plus 104. This is the true line of this bet. So another example that I like to give is the stock market. So New York Stock Exchange, pretty reputable. Let's pretend they price Apple stock $300 a share. Okay, you believe that's an accurate representation of the Apple stock. You can get it. Some random exchange is saying you can buy Apple stock at $280 a share. Well, that seems like a good price because this reputable source says it's at 300. You could buy it at 280. You're going to take advantage of that. You're going to buy that stock and you're going to make $20 for however many shares you buy. It's the same thing with sports betting. The sharpest, most reputable sports books in the world price this at plus 104. You can get it on a sports book at plus 115. So the gap between these two numbers, that is positive expected value. These Novig odds say it should truly be priced at plus 104. The perfect line is plus 104. You can get it at plus 115. That's positive expected value. And you know which bet is the positive EV one because it's bolded. It has the little blue marker around it as well. This is the positive expected value bet. A player prop, Trey Jones under 0.5 made threes. So to talk about it in percentage terms, to get back to the flipping the coin example, and I find this fascinating probably because I'm a numbers guy and I'm a math guy and I'm a nerd in that way. I come from data, my previous job before OddsJam. All odds have a win percentage associated with them. So plus 100 equals 50-50. Basically, if you place 100 plus 100 bets and you win 50% of the time, you will break even. You won't lose money. You won't win money. All odds have a win percentage associated with them. And we can calculate that. So if you click this calculator here, it tells you right here that the sharpest sports books in the world think that this is going to win 49% of the time, 48.97, whatever. But the implied odds of plus 115, so if you go to calculators, you go to odds converter calculator and you type in the odds, it only needs to win 46.51% of the time to break even. So let's pretend that we live in a simulation and this game is played 1,000 times. According to the sharpest sportsbooks in the world, this bet is going to win roughly 48.97% of the time. So it's going to win 489 times. Cool. But based on the implied odds of plus 115, it only needs to win 465% of the time in order to be profitable. So any number above 465 that this bet wins, you will make money. And we know, based on all these sharp sports books, that it'll win roughly 489% of the time. So over the course of time, you will make money from this transaction, from this bet. You can actually calculate just how valuable a positive expected value bet is right here, giving you this percent. This percent here, this is the this is the expected value percent. Can also be viewed as your expected profit margin. For every $100 bet on this play, you could figure to profit $5.28. So again, if it's played 1,000 zillion million times, we live in a simulation, you will end up making $5.28 from this bet. Now, there's a couple of things to dive into there. Number one, the first question I always get, how can you have an expected profit margin? You're either going to win this bet, you're going to get all your profit, or you're going to lose this bet and you're going to lose your risk. And that's true. But like I said, the whole point is a long-term play. So yes, this one individual bet will either win or lose, whatever. But if you're placing 250, 500, 1,000 positive expected value bets, you will see your expected profit will start to equal your actual profit. So I bet $100 here, I bet $100 here, I just made $5.28 plus $3.58. That's how the expected profit works. Your expected profit, your actual profit equal out over time. The next question people ask is, oh, wow, I made $5.28. I can pay for my Starbucks cold brew tomorrow now. It doesn't seem like that much money. It's a good point, and there's a couple of things to note there. Number one, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You're not placing 1,000, 100,000 plus odds parlays, $5 to win 500,000. No, it's consistent income. You're consistently making 5%, 3%, 2% every single day. So you're not trying to get rich overnight. You're trying to make sustainable income, sustainable profit over the course of time. And this is just one bet. How many bets would you say you place over the course of a night? 10, 15, 20. So if you're placing 20 bets, this 5% turns into $100, and that's just one night. $100 a night. If you do that every week, you're making $700 a week. You're making $2,800 a month. So this percent is actually very important because it's your profit margin. You can literally calculate over time how much money you should be making. And that's pretty much everything regarding the math behind positive expected value betting and why it's such a valuable tool. And there's other stuff that I like to look out for before personally placing a bet. Number one, if you just click a play here on OddsJam, it pulls up every sportsbook and what they price odds at. And all we're looking for here is an outlier. So I mentioned if odds are wide ranging, one has to be right, one has to be wrong. Well, if you're signed up for every sportsbook in your state, you can line shop and you can let the other sportsbooks tell you what one is right, what one is wrong. So if we're looking at this play, plus 115 is the positive expected value bet, right? Look across the board at every other sportsbook. No other sportsbook even has this at plus 100. This, like we see minus 105, minus 106. Those are the two closest to Bet365. So the betting market is telling you this plus 115, this is the wrong one. Either this one sportsbook out of 12 is the correct one, or 11 out of 12 are actually correct and this one is wrong. Generally, the outlier is the incorrect one. And if you can place enough outlier bets such as this, I can guarantee you will be profitable in the long run. It's how positive expected value betting works. I was just a user before I started working for OddsJam full time. I used the product and I was like, holy crap, this is an incredibly valuable tool. So now I work here and I get to tell people about it, which is an amazing thing. So hopefully this video made sense. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can comment on the video with questions. You can reach out to us at an email, contact@oddsjam.com if you have any questions. But hopefully this made sense why positive expected value betting is so valuable. If you haven't yet signed up, I'd recommend just going to oddsjam.com, play around with the tool. You can sign up for 7 days for completely free. Use the strategy that I talked about in this video, identifying outliers, and I guarantee you'll be a profitable 7 days using OddsJam. But that's it. So I do appreciate everybody watching. If you could click that like button, subscribe to the OddsJam YouTube channel, it would help me out a ton. But that's all I got. So thanks for watching and have a good one.